You've lived a great life and done well for yourself. But what mark will you leave on the world? How will you inspire future generations? Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand have helped thousands of people answer exactly those questions. If you've ever wondered, what will be my legacy? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Stan and Katie Beth.
Hello, everyone. This is Eddie James here with Legacy Stories Podcast. We're here once again bringing you a great legacy story from the financial services industry. Today, I have Ross Dietrich with us. So just to share a little bit with you about Ross Dietrich, managing partner of Price Kong, has over 20 years of accounting experience. He's a certified public accountant licensed in Arizona, Florida, Michigan, and New York. Ross focuses on providing attest services, which encompass audits, reviews of financial statements, and compilations. He has performed hundreds of financial statement and employee benefit audits during his career. Ross is also experienced in the areas of tax, accounting, business consulting, and succession planning, and has participated as an expert witness for several lawsuits to provide testimony on accounting matters. Ross's clients represent a wide range of industries and businesses, including construction, cannabis, financial, legal, governmental, closely held businesses, and nonprofit. He is a member of the Arizona Society of CPAs and the American Institute for Certified Public Accountants. Outside the office, Ross enjoys golfing, bowling, church activities, and spending time with his wife and 5 children. Ross earned a B.B.A. in accounting from University of Michigan, and prior to joining Price Kong, Ross worked in public accounting with another Arizona firm for 7 years. Ross, good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Excellent. To go ahead and begin, as was stated in the bio, you started out with the University of Michigan.
Go Blue.
Tell us, how did you end up moving over to become a CPA, starting out as a Wolverine and moving over into public accounting? We'd love to hear that story.
It's interesting. I started my college career as a math major because I was just really good at math, and I thought I was going to be an actuary. One of the prerequisites was an accounting 101 class, and when I in that class, it just all made sense to me, and that's what I'm supposed to do. So I finished my degree, pursued my degree in accounting, and then in 1999, my uncle has lived in Arizona for a long time, and him and I were close, and I finished school and was in for the exam, came out to visit in Arizona, and moved here in January that next year. So that was how I ended up here.
That's a great story. Thank you. Now, for you, what does it mean to be a CPA in this day and age?
It's interesting. When I first got in the profession, it was it was before the Arthur Andersen Enron days. And I think that our profession really had this clout. So it felt like I was going into this great profession, and it still is a great profession. I think that we took some hits along the way. So early on in my career, it was just about crunching numbers and doing audits and doing tax returns. But as I grew in my career, it really is about helping clients, helping them just manage their business, manage tax from that perspective. And what I would say is that most people are really good at what they do in their business. They know how to sell whatever they're selling, manufacture whatever widget they are, or build whatever they're building. But generally, they're not really good business people in the sense that they just don't know the numbers. That's what I do. And it's really rewarding to help them figure out how much money they are or aren't making, help them plan for the future, decide where they're going with their business. And as I started getting older, my clients started getting older, a lot more succession stuff where we either are looking to sell outside the company or inside the company to key employees or to family members, and just being part of that kind of holistic view. It's more than just saving money in taxes. It really is.
Excellent point. And thank you again for just sharing some of the breadth and depth of the industry as well. So how did you come upon to your current firm? I know you shared a little bit about that in the bio, but we'd love to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, when I moved to Arizona, I started working for another firm. We did a lot of government nonprofit auditing and traveled a lot, went all over the place. I spent 25, 30 weeks a year on the road. And then when I met my wife and she had a 7-year-old daughter and then we had a son right away, I didn't want to travel all the time. So I was looking for a firm I didn't have to travel. And that's how I ended up at Price Kong. And that was in 2006. So I'm at 17, 18 years now.
Yes, that's great. And so I know you alluded a little bit to you about your care for clients. What does an ideal client look like for you?
Most of our clients and what I really enjoy doing are closely held businesses. We have a couple of publicly traded companies that we do some work for, but it's not a lot. And it's these closely held businesses that are family-owned businesses or 2 or 3 partners. And that's their livelihood. That's their baby. That's what they're proud of. And just being a part of that. We say that we like having a seat at the board of directors in their company. And so that's really, in our firm, we're 61 people today. We're one of the largest local firms in Arizona. We just have one office in Central Phoenix, and almost all of our clients are just that. They're these closely held businesses ranging from $1 million to $200 million in sales. That's probably the sweet spot. When you get over $100 million or $200 million, they usually have good CFOs or something. And a lot of what we do in that consulting side goes away. Then we just become transactional, which we can do that too. But where I really love what I'm doing is when I help a client get out of the mess they're in, make more money, figure out where they're going in the future. So.
Excellent. Glad to hear. And how do these ideal clients, how do they best find you?
Actually, over my career, I've just built a huge network in Arizona and talked to people that have clients, people like yourself, people like in the construction side. I spent a lot of time, have breakfast, lunch, golf with bond agents. And when they have a construction client that needs help, they say, hey, I know this great CPA. They send them over, and that's what we do. So it's word of mouth. It's building just a big network. And what I find is even more valuable in my network is I know so many people in Phoenix that do good work in whatever profession or trade they're in. I become this resource for clients where hey, I know everybody. So do you know an electrician that can come fix my house? And I absolutely do. And that just adds more value and just helping people in their lives in general, not just, it's so much more than saving somebody money in taxes.
That's great. It's really evident, again, just that true relationship asset that you're providing over and beyond just transactional. So what are some of the common issues that you feel like that you really help your clients with?
Most of the time, especially with small businesses, closely held stuff, they just don't really have a very good accounting department. They hire a bookkeeper. I think the rule is 5 to 10% of your revenues you spend on accounting. And most people don't do that. And that's because it's a tough deal. You don't see any value from that. They're not producing revenue. So they go a little bit on the cheap side. They hire bookkeepers. Lots of times family members doing the books, and they just don't know what they don't know. So it's not like they're bad people. So when they come to me, we're doing all this work, we're not making any money, and we start digging into what the numbers really look like. Then they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. So that's usually the biggest thing. One of the things I love helping people with, especially small businesses, is I do a lot of fraud stuff and be able to identify fraud. And I give like a 2-hour presentation on fraud and how to prevent it. And every business, there's fraud going on. And when I open clients' eyes to that, sometimes it's minor, people lying about how much time they're working or doing this kind of thing, but that's still fraud. Sometimes it gets really big. And so there's been some of my most memorable feel-good cases that I've worked on for clients is they come to me, they don't know what's going on. I find out somebody was stealing from them. And then 10 years later, they've got a great business because they didn't have somebody taking money out the back door.
Wow. Great example. What would you say are some of the common misconceptions that many potential clients believe that it's just a fallacy?
I think that a lot of clients believe that as a CPA, especially as an auditor, as a financial statement auditor, they think that when you say auditor, most people think of an IRS auditor, where they're coming in and looking at every single transaction and trying to beat you down. As a financial statement auditor, we're actually part of your team and trying to help you get good financial information so you can get bonding or banking or to comply. And we don't look at every transaction in an audit. That's not what we do. And I think from the audit side, that's probably the biggest one. And then I think that from the tax side of the world, I've run into so many people say, I don't pay any taxes. I'm like, what do you mean you don't pay any taxes? I get a refund every year. That doesn't mean you didn't pay taxes. And it's just, yeah, exactly. And they don't understand it, but that's just and then the other thing about, I don't want to make more money because I'll go in the next tax bracket. Again, up until that number, you're only getting taxed at that rate below that. And people don't understand. Like, I'd rather you make that extra money and pay 2% on this extra $50,000 than to not get it. And so those are the two biggest, just right off the top. And then I think there's a lot of people too on the tax side that don't understand that when you start making a lot of money, you get phased out of all these exemptions and deductions and stuff that other people get. I've had clients over the years just call and say, I had dinner with this friend of mine and they're getting all this money because they have these kids and I have kids and I'm not getting it. And I'm like, yeah, you made $600,000. You don't get any of that. So those are some of the misconceptions.
Yeah. Thank you. And what about any stories that you can share about services gone wrong or someone not taking your advice, and what was the end result of that?
Sure. Great one that comes to mind is a restoration company, and it was back in the recession and they were really struggling. And he came and he said, hey, I'm making I'm bidding everything at 30% gross margin and I'm not making any money. I said, well, if you're bidding at 30% gross margin today in the recession, you're not getting work. So that can't be right. So we did a cost allocation analysis and looked what his true direct costs were. And I showed him that he needed to do $3 million more revenue just to break even with his overhead costs because he was paying himself and other people too much. And at the end of that, and this was just a couple of weeks of digging in and looking, I told him, I said, oh, by the way, I'm pretty sure your bookkeeper is stealing from you. And he went back to the office and told her that I said that she was stealing from him, and they fired us the next day. 6 months later, his company in Arizona and his company in California were both bankrupt and out of business because he just didn't want to accept the fact that's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to love when they actually go and tell the person who we believe is committing the fraud, right?
Yeah. And I offered up, said, hey, let me dig into this. Let me get a hold of the QuickBooks. Let me have a couple people do some stuff but I really have a feeling that there's something not right here. Right. And he went back and told her. And just, I could go, like I said, I could go on for 2 hours about fraud, but the people that steal from you are long-term trusted employees and family members. So if anybody listening to this has those people in their accounting department, just take a close look. Not that everybody's bad, but that's what happens. And there's lots of reasons for it. But
I hope everyone is listening. Inspect what you expect, people.
Absolutely.
Just do the due diligence or hire someone to do diligence.
Right. And just pay attention and ask questions. If you pay attention and ask questions, no matter whether it's you're looking for fraud or whether if you're not asking questions of your CPA about, hey, wait a minute, you told me to do this, but why? If you're not asking that, so many times I get prospective clients come in and my accountant told me to be an S corporation, but I have no idea why that is. And then I'll spend 20 minutes and explain to them why. Generally, on the next time I meet with them, I got to explain it to them again because they don't learn it first or second or third time. But they were never explained why. They just had blind faith. And it's okay to have faith in professionals that know what they're doing, but it's really good for you to understand why, especially when things start changing in your business environment, whether the recession hits and things slow down. You need to understand why.
Right. Exactly. And just to have peace of mind as a client.
Absolutely.
Just to have peace of mind. Yeah. What about a story of advice going right?
As you say that, there's a client that comes to mind. It was a contractor. They built fences around prisons. And when I met them, they were doing okay and had a lot of business, but they weren't making a lot of money and they were having real significant cash flow issues. So when I had an outside bookkeeper come in, not somebody who works for my firm that knows construction, and kind of get their job costing done and say, here's what they were really doing. Then we really got to the bottom of it. And they had jobs that were going bad just because people weren't paying attention. And then what was really interesting about it was they had about $300,000 of retention on the books that no one had called and asked for. Most of those jobs had been done for 2 years. And when I pointed that out, they called, they got 3/4 of that. The rest of the other people said, hey, it's been too long. I'm not going to pay you. But they've been a client for 12 or 13 years. And they actually just signed a deal to sell the company. And the husband and wife that own the company retired. So it's been along the way, they've asked me a lot of advice about, should we do this? Should we do that? And just working in connection with them. They'll tell you that I helped save their company back then, and I've helped them along the way. And that just makes you feel good when somebody's selling their company for a good price and riding off into the sunset. So
that's great. That's a great story. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
What would you say right now in this season is your biggest challenge?
There's a couple. Probably the biggest challenge we've had over the last 18 to 24 months is staffing. Just like every other business in the entire country, where did all these workers go? And, we're a relationship business all the way. And I've had so many over the last 18 months interviews and people apply for positions, experienced people, and they want to be full-time remote. And we've had to learn to accept some of that, but you can't be full-time remote and really be in front of clients, not from the beginning. But even then, for the longest time, we didn't have any qualified candidates even applying. Like, I had no idea where they went. So we actually had to scale back we had to get rid of some clients that probably should have been gone anyway, because we didn't have enough people to do the work. Over the last 8 months, we've been really successful. We're ready to go forward, and I'm really excited about the future. But that's been the biggest struggle for a long time. And then as the work environment has changed, and I think this is applicable to every single business out there, not only have we had to look at the remote stuff, and we learned all that through COVID and just this that we're doing right now, but the culture has to change too in these businesses. Because when we came out of our partner retreat last year, our number one priority was to create a firm that people wanted to work for. Because in our profession, especially, we've been known as grinders, work all these hours, and you have widows during tax season. But no one wants to work that way these days. And frankly, I don't either. So I think that everybody needs to take a good look at their own business, what their culture truly is, and make sure it's a place where people want to work, because everybody's looking for help. So if you got an employee that's unhappy, it's easy for them to go somewhere and get a 10, 15, 23% pay raise, even though they might not be qualified for that, but that's the environment. So I think that's the biggest challenge I've had over the last few years. And I think right now, just with the uncertainty of the future of the economy, a lot of clients, a lot of banks are just a little hesitant. They're a little more conservative, not real sure that they want to spend money to move forward, because they just don't know what the future is. So I think it's an interesting time for us. The economy still seems overheated, especially here in Phoenix. But man, you feel they're looking over their shoulder a little bit. So
Yes. And then when I tell people, tell me a time when you really didn't look over your shoulder, right? Everyone always talks about the most change that we've ever seen. You know how often we've been saying that for the last millennium, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And with that, the change thing, it's exponential. And I think it was 2010, which was only 13 years ago. That's when the first iPad was delivered. It's only 13 years. It seems like it was forever ago. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yes. I was just in a meeting before now about the robotic surgeries and AI robotic surgeries, and how that's going to be the way for affordable healthcare moving forward. So we'll see. But I digress. What do you like best about your current role, and how you're able to go ahead and serve people and some of your employees as well?
That's an interesting question, because my current role today, I'm the managing partner of the firm. So I do a lot less client facing and client direct work. My job is, I believe my job is, when I walk through the front doors of the firm every day, is to find a way to make a difference in everybody's lives and to keep the firm moving forward, so that these 61 people that work for me have a future. And in the last 5 years, I've been able to do a lot myself to help 3 people become partners at the firm. And in the last, actually, since 2019, so it's only been, that was the end of 19, right before COVID, we were at 48 people. Today we're at 61. And the fact that we've created those good, high-paying, full-time jobs in our community, that's important to me too. So my role is different in the sense of helping clients. I still help clients, but honestly, I've got these 61 people all growing to be able to help clients just the way I was for the last 20 years. So that's what's really important and rewarding to me today.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. That's great. Ross, is there anything else that you'd like to go ahead and share with us before we bring this to a close?
If there's any college students listening to this, the accounting world is not what they're telling you it is. It's actually a really good place to earn a good living. So don't do this. I'm not going to do it because it's 90 hours a week during tax season, because it's changing quickly. The big firms are changing, the small firms are changing, and we need some real smart quality people in our industry these days, because the last 15 years or so have really been a drain on the incoming talent, and for a lot of good reasons. With the technology sector taking a lot of really smart people, and we've got a ping pong table at Google or whatever, you got a free lunch and whatever is going on. Our profession got a bad rap that we just were this sweatshop, grind them. That's changed, and that's changing fast. So you can really do a lot of good stuff and make a lot of money in our profession. So I want everybody that can do math to apply to the business school and take accounting classes.
Excellent. And then again, where can we find you?
Our website, is that, you mean that kind of information?
Absolutely.
It's www.pricekong.com. And if you Google CPA firms in Phoenix, if that didn't work, then you can find us there. There's pictures of all of our team, the services we do, the industries we provide. And my email address is rdietrich, so RDIETRICH at pkcpa.com. And if anybody wants to email me and touch base, I'll be happy to impart my knowledge, whatever I can, or point you in the right direction. And so there you go.
Excellent. Ross, thank you so much for joining us. This has been Eddie with the Legacy Podcast Stories. Again, I've been here with Ross Dietrich, everyone, with Price Kong. Thanks for joining us, and thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks, Ross. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To find out more about Stan and Katie Beth, go to pinnaclelegacylaw.com. You can also find links in the show notes.